Long before the pyramids pierced the sky, before Rome raised its legions, before even the first lines of history were carved into clay, there was an age of blood and iron. A world of warring kingdoms, lost gods and forgotten empires. Out of this chaos strode one man, half legend, half flesh. A barbarian who would conquer kings, bed their queens, and carve his name across an age that never truly was, yet echoes with the ghosts of our own past. Robert E. Howard gave him life in pulp magazines. Marvel Comics turned him into the savage avenger of an age between myth and memory. But who was Conan really? Where would he have lived? What kingdoms would he have battled? And if he had walked our world, what rulers and empires might have crossed his path? In this video, we'll tear open the veil of myth and history and uncover the real-world origins of Marvel's Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian was born not in the sands of some ancient battlefield, but in the restless imagination of Robert E. Howard. In 1932, Howard introduced Conan to the world through the pulp magazine Weird Tales. He described him as a Cimmerian, a fierce wanderer, mercenary and pirate, roaming a mythical era Howard called the Hyborian Age. Howard's trick was genius. Place Conan in a lost epoch he described as after the fall of Atlantis, but before the rise of known civilization. This allowed him to draw freely from history, borrowing names from Celts, Scythians, Persians and Vikings, without being bound to strict historical accuracy. Conan could fight sorcerers, giants and demons one day, and raid ships that felt straight out of the Bronze Age the next. 4 decades later, Marvel Comics took Howard's creation and unleashed him on a new audience. In 1970, writer Roy Thomas and artist Barry Windsor Smith launched Conan the Barbarian. Their gritty, violent, and often psychedelic storytelling defined Conan for an entire generation of readers. Later, artists like John Buscema and writers like Jerry Conway expanded his world, cementing Conan as one of Marvel's most enduring anti-heroes. But behind the sorcery and swordplay, Conan's world still whispers of our own past. His Cimmerian roots, his Hyborian wars, they aren't just fantasy. They echo the struggles of real tribes, real kingdoms and real empires that once dominated the ancient world. So where would Conan have truly come from? To answer that, we journey back to the dawn of history. In the comics and in Robert E. Howard's stories, Conan is a Cimmerian. His people are painted as fierce tribal warriors who thrive in a harsh, mist-covered homeland of crags and mountains. But Cimmerian wasn't just a word Howard invented. It comes from history. The real Cimmerians were a nomadic people who roamed the steppes north of the Black Sea, what is now Ukraine and southern Russia. In the 8th and 7th centuries BC, they thundered into the Near East, clashing with the mighty Assyrian Empire and raiding into Anatolia. To their enemies, they were ghosts of the north, barbarians who struck hard and vanished into the mist. Howard reimagined these Cimmerians through a Celtic lens. Conan's broadsword, his tribal independence, even the gloomy landscapes of Cimmeria echo the early Celts of Central Europe. In many ways, Conan is less a single man of history than a fusion of two worlds: the historical Cimmerians who terrified the ancient Near East, and the proto-Celtic tribes who forged warrior cultures in the shadow of the Alps. So if Conan's roots can be traced to the steppes of Eurasia, what age of the world might he have truly walked in? For that, we must look not just at a people, but at a time. Robert E. Howard placed Conan in a mythical epoch he called the Hyborian Age, a time after the sinking of Atlantis, but before the first civilizations we know, a world outside history. But if we search for a real-world equivalent, Conan's life echoes most strongly in one era, the great collapse of the ancient world. Around 1200 BC, the Bronze Age crumbled. Great empires fell, The Mycenaean Greeks, the Hittite kingdom of Anatolia, and even mighty Egypt staggered under waves of famine, rebellion, and foreign invasion. Across the seas came mysterious raiders, the Egyptians called the Sea Peoples, tribes of wanderers who plundered, burned, and vanished. This was an age of mercenaries and raiders, of tribes cast adrift in a shattered world. It is here, between the collapse of the Bronze Age and the rise of the Iron Age, that Conan fits most naturally. He is the wandering sword for hire, the pirate king, the warlord who thrives in the vacuum left by fallen empires. If Howard's Hyborian Age belongs anywhere in real time, it lives in this twilight zone, after the old kingdoms of bronze had burned, and before the iron-wielding empires of Assyria, Babylon, and Persia had risen. A dark age where a man like Conan could indeed carve his legend with blood and steel. But what kingdoms would Conan have known? What rulers might he have faced or overthrown if he walked this earth? For those questions, we must step into the real map of the ancient world, a map that was unforgiving as it was incomplete. If Conan truly strode across the earth, his world would have been filled with kingdoms both mighty and fragile. Nations rising from the wreckage of the Bronze Age, clawing for dominance in the dawn of the Iron Age. To the east stood the Assyrian Empire, a war machine forged in iron. Its kings, Tiglath-Pileser, Sargon, Ashurbanipal, ruled with cruelty and brilliance, building one of the most feared empires in history. Against them, Conan would have seemed a wild barbarian, but one who could carve through their disciplined ranks with the fury of 10 men. To the south lay Babylonia, heirs of ancient Sumer. Here astronomy, mathematics, and ritual magic flourished. For Conan, this is the world of sorcerers and priest-kings, the very archetypes Robert E. Howard borrowed for his Hyborian wizards. In the west, the old kingdom of Egypt still stood but weakened, fractured, invaded by Libyans and Nubians. Conan as pirate, raider, or mercenary would have found Egypt a tempting prize, its riches legendary even in decline. Along the coast, the Phoenicians ruled the seas, masters of trade, inventors of the alphabet, and builders of Carthage. Conan's years as a sea rover echo their world, where fleets of merchants and pirates clashed on the waves. And to the northwest, in the ashes of Mycenae, the first sparks of Greece were reigniting. Small city-states destined to shape the future. A man like Conan, passing through, might have been remembered in legend, just as Achilles and Heracles were. This was Conan's stage, a world of iron-wielding kings and faltering empires, of merchants, sorcerers, and raiders. But it was also an age of innovation, where the tools of war, the ships of the sea, and the myths of entire civilizations were being reborn. To understand Conan's age, however, we must look not only at kingdoms, but at the ideas and inventions that reshaped the world he might have known. The world Conan might have walked was not only violent, it was transforming. This was the dawn of the Iron Age, when blacksmiths unlocked a metal harder and sharper than bronze. Iron weapons were stronger, cheaper, and more abundant. For the first time, entire armies, and not just elites, could march into battle armed with steel. Conan's broadsword in this light is more than fantasy. It is the weapon of a new age. The old war chariots of the Bronze Age were fading into relics. In their place came the rise of cavalry, swift horsemen who could strike and vanish. It was a revolution in tactics. And in Conan's stories, we see this shift reflected. Battles fought not just by armies in rigid formation, but by raiders, mercenaries, and wanderers who lived by the sword. On the seas, another transformation was underway. The Phoenicians became the masters of the Mediterranean, building ships that could cross vast distances and binding the ancient world together through trade. They spread not only goods but ideas, the most enduring of which was their alphabet. With only 22 letters, it was easy to learn, quick to adapt, and destined to evolve into Greek, Latin, and eventually our own alphabets. Imagine, as Conan plundered ships and sacked cities, the very script that would one day spell his name was just being born. But this was also an age of competing systems of writing. In Babylonia, clay tablets recorded star charts and omens. In Egypt, the priests carved hieroglyphs into temple walls that reached for the heavens. To live in Conan's time was to stand on the edge between two worlds, the fading grandeur of the old ways, and the rise of new systems that would shape all of human history. And towering over it all were the monuments of empires, ziggurats rising like mountains in Mesopotamia, the colossal temples of Luxor and Karnak in Egypt, and the fortified citadels of the Hittites, now crumbling into ruins. These were the cities and temples Conan might have gazed upon as both mercenary and marauder, symbols of power that men believed eternal, but which, like all things, could be toppled by sword and fire. This was Conan's world, a crucible of iron, empire, and invention, a time when alphabets were being born, when monuments reached for eternity, and when kingdoms rose and fell like waves on the sea. Yet Conan is more than a man of his age. He stands as a living bridge between the legends of the past and the history yet to come. Conan exists in two worlds at once, the imagined and the historical. The Hyborian Age is a tapestry woven from myths, legends, and fragments of history. But beneath the magic and the monsters, Conan reflects the real world, the tribal warriors, the iron swords, the collapsing empires of a time long past. Conan stands at this crossroads. His world mirrors the fall of Bronze Age empires, the rise of new powers, and the relentless warriors who carved their names into a changing world. He draws from heroes like Gilgamesh and Achilles, but he also reflects the real raiders, kings, and survivors who lived through history's most turbulent age. As a living echo of ancient civilizations, Conan represents an age of triumphs, magic, ruins, and legends. A barbarian whose adventures and exploits would have helped bring about the end of one age and the beginning of another. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Only on Cretonium.